The text message blinked up, bright white against the dark screen. 3 months ago, Easter Sunday. I was standing in the cramped hallway of my Boston apartment, wearing a cheap cotton dress, ready to drive 4 hours back to suburban Connecticut, carrying a casserole dish I'd spent all morning stressing over. Dad, skip Easter. Your sister's husband is a CEO now. We're celebrating. He's finally successful. Unlike some people. It wasn't even subtle. No gentle excuse about logistics. Just a blunt declaration. I was the failure. Derek, the guy who used to sell dubious crypto schemes out of a borrowed minivan, had somehow landed a title that made me, a commercial lending VP at a major bank, irrelevant. I stared at the screen until the words, "unlike some people," burned into my retinas. They saw my career as a job. They saw Derek's leveraged startup as destiny. I typed one word back. Okay. I didn't go. I ate the casserole myself, standing over the sink. It was too salty. Now it was July. The air outside the massive floor-to-ceiling office windows was a muggy, shimmering disaster. Inside the bank tower, the central cooling system roared, a constant, low machine sound that swallowed every street noise. I adjusted my posture, ramming my spine straight against the cold steel of the executive chair. The expensive leather of the seat stuck slightly to the backs of my thighs. This office smelled like clean money and filtered air. 28th floor. Granite and glass. It smelled like distance from the tiny, damp basement apartment I rented when I first moved here. Too scared to spend money on anything but food. My desk was a dark, intimidating block of mahogany, clean enough to eat off. Everything was sharp angles and neutrality. I was Stephanie Vance, Vice President, Commercial Lending Division, 28 years old, and I signed off on loans bigger than my parents' net worth. The suit jacket, light gray wool, tailored to fit like a second skin, was draped over the back of the chair. My blouse was ivory silk, slightly too tight across the shoulders. I wore clothes that were supposed to look effortless, but they felt like a uniform for war. I picked up the file lying on the blotter. It had been sitting there for 20 minutes. I had seen the name when Sarah, my assistant, dropped it off. Applicant, Vance & Sons Landscaping. Loan request, $85,000. Vance. My stomach did a tight flip. Vance was a common name. I dealt with 5 Vances a week. I flipped the first page with a practiced motion. The paper was heavy. Expensive bond. Principal applicant, William K. Vance. My throat instantly closed. William K. Vance. My father. I felt the blood rush from my head. A sudden cold wave. I put the file down, carefully, deliberately, ensuring the papers didn't ruffle. No sudden movements. I gripped the edge of the desk, my knuckles turning white. The air conditioning suddenly felt loud. A rushing white noise roar in my ears. I focused on the sound of the pencil sharpener in the next cube over. Whir, stop, whir, stop. He was here, in my bank, asking for money. The sheer audacity of it was staggering. He didn't even know I worked here. Not really. He knew I worked in finance. He probably thought I answered phones or processed deposits. He never asked specific questions. When I'd tried to explain my role 3 years ago, he just nodded vaguely and changed the subject to Derek's latest disruptive technology. He skipped Easter because I wasn't successful enough, and now he was walking into my territory, my castle, hat in hand, praying I was just some random faceless bank employee. The internal temperature of the office, usually a perfect 68 degrees, suddenly felt like 0. I could feel the cold radiating from the glass and the stone, settling deep in my chest. My hands, resting on the desk, felt cold and dry. My focus narrowed to the grain of the mahogany. I looked at the photograph stapled to the upper right corner of the application, a headshot of my father, smiling too widely, the photo probably taken at a strip mall studio for his new driver's license. The smile looked fake, strained. The desperation was palpable, even in the two-dimensional image. $85,000. That was probably the exact amount Derek needed to keep his lights on for 2 months. My father likely saw this loan as the necessary sacrifice to keep the whole family facade afloat. He needed this money. Badly. The intercom on my desk buzzed. A low, discreet sound. designed not to interrupt concentration. "Yes, Sarah?" My voice sounded tight, brittle. I hoped she didn't hear the tremor that ran through the word. "Mr. Vance is here for the 10:30 appointment. Shall I send him back?" I closed my eyes for a fraction of a second. "William K. Vance. Here. Now." "Yes. Send him in, Sarah." I didn't move an inch. I stayed seated. I forced myself to breathe slow, shallow breaths. I arranged my face into the neutral mask of professional disinterest I wore for every high-stakes meeting. Cold, clean, unreadable. I watched the heavy oak door. The wood was solid, dense. The first thing I heard was the sound of his shoes on the polished concrete floor in the outer reception area. Not the crisp, decisive click of expensive leather, but a dull, rubbery drag. He was wearing his old work boots, freshly polished, but still cheap. He probably thought it looked authentic, hardworking, grounded. The door opened. Sarah, crisp in her navy suit, gestured him in with a polite, impersonal sweep of her hand. "Mr. Vance, this is Ms. Vance. She will be handling your application." Sarah closed the door softly. The lock clicked into place. A final, definitive sound. He stepped fully into the room. My father, Bill. He looked exactly the same, only the fatigue was deeper around the eyes. He wore a cheap, faded button-down shirt, plaid, blue and white, tucked into khakis that were too loose around the waist. His hair was thinning exactly as I remembered, swept back with too much effort. He looked anxious, trying to project competence but failing miserably under the weight of the room. He didn't see me immediately. He was scanning the room, impressed. His eyes went straight to the view, the harbor, the tiny toy boats, the glittering glass of the rival towers. He was focusing on the VP part of the equation, the status of the office, the sheer financial weight. He finally turned his gaze to the desk, to the person sitting behind it, to me. The recognition hit him like a physical blow. His mouth opened. He stopped dead, 2 steps into the room. The initial confident smile, the one he practiced in the truck mirror, vanished instantly. His eyes, light brown and usually aggressive, went wide with immediate total confusion, quickly chased by horror. "Stephanie," he choked out. The name sounded foreign, unused, strained. I waited a beat. A long, cold, exquisite beat of silence. I didn't smile. I didn't stand up. I stayed exactly where I was, seated behind $12,000 of mahogany desk, high above the city, wearing my armor. "Good morning, Mr. Vance," I said. My voice was low, perfectly controlled, devoid of warmth, professionally modulated, pure banking professionalism. I gestured toward the soft guest chair. "Please, have a seat. I see you're applying for an $85,000 commercial loan for Vance & Sons Landscaping. We need to discuss the collateral immediately." He didn't move. He just stared. His face turned a shade of mottled red that I hadn't seen since he tried to change a flat tire in the rain 6 years ago and the lug wrench slipped. Humiliation mixed with raw panic. What are you doing here?" he stammered, his eyes darting toward the closed door, as if planning an escape route from the 28th floor. "I work here, Dad," I corrected him, leaning forward slightly, emphasizing the title I had earned with years of 18-hour days. "I am the vice president in charge of your application. You are in my office." I saw the exact moment the total collapse of his reality set in. The sudden cold realization that the powerful, faceless bank VP he had to impress was the daughter he had dismissed as a failure 3 months earlier, the one who wasn't a CEO, the one who wasn't worthy of Easter dinner. I picked up the file again. I ran a sharp, manicured nail across the top edge of the paperwork. The paper made a soft, rasping sound. "Let's discuss the numbers, shall we?" I kept my voice flat, clinical. "You've listed the primary collateral as the family home, valued at $320,000. However, according to our records, you have an existing mortgage balance of $285,000. That leaves only $35,000 in equity, not nearly enough to secure an $85,000 line of credit." He finally moved, shuffling toward the guest chair. He sat down heavily, the leather creaking under his weight. He looked smaller in the oversized chair, diminished. "Stephanie, listen," he started. "Ms. Vance," I corrected him. "In this office, I am Ms. Vance. His jaw tightened. A flash of the old anger, the familiar dismissiveness, but he swallowed it. He needed me now. Ms. Vance, he repeated, the words grinding out like gravel. The business is solid. We just need a bridge loan to cover the equipment upgrade. Derek's company is going to contract us for their new headquarters landscaping. It's a sure thing. Derek. There it was. The golden son-in-law. The CEO. The reason I wasn't welcome at Easter. Derek's company. I repeated slowly, savoring the words. You mean the startup that has burned through 3 rounds of venture funding and hasn't turned a profit in 2 years? The company that, according to public filings, is currently seeking emergency bridge financing because they missed their Q2 revenue targets by 40%? The color drained from his face. He hadn't expected me to know. He hadn't expected me to do my homework. How do you... I work in commercial lending, Dad. It's my job to know which companies are solvent and which are circling the drain. I pulled a printed report from the file. Derek's company is rated as high risk by 3 separate credit agencies. Any contract they offer you is worthless if they file for bankruptcy before the project is completed. I slid the report across the desk. He didn't touch it. This application isn't about Vance & Sons landscaping, Dad. It's the cost of that text message. It's the bill you sent me for being less successful than you wanted. He didn't take the binder. His hands stayed stiffly in his lap. You're going to deny us the loan because of a stupid text? He asked, the outrage genuine. He still believed his minor cruelty shouldn't have major consequences. I am denying the loan because the business model is structurally unsound. The collateral is insufficient, and the risk outweighs the potential return, I recited, slipping back into the professional voice. I had to keep the record clean. But I will admit, the irony is delicious. I picked up the pen again. I flipped to the final page of the rejection letter where my signature was required. I spent 3 years working 80 hours a week to get to this desk, Dad. I paid off my student loans in 4 years. I earned this office. I earned the right to decide who gets capital and who doesn't. The pen hovered over the line. Derek, the successful CEO, came to you for money. You came to me. And now, I decide. I pressed the silver nib hard against the paper. The ink flowed black. Permanent. Absolute. Stephanie A. Vance, VP. I pulled the signed letter from the pad. I slid it across the desk toward him. It stopped right on the edge of the blotter. There is your formal rejection bill. You should get a copy in the mail in 3 to 5 business days. Have Derek read the rationale. Maybe he can find a loophole. He didn't touch the letter. He just stared at my signature, the black ink shining slightly under the office lights. You know what this means, don't you? He whispered. It means Vance & Sons doesn't get a loan from this bank, I replied. No, it means we lose the house. That inflated appraisal? We used it to borrow against equity for Billy's college tuition. We were counting on this loan to cover the next payment cycle. Billy, my older sister's son, the other favorite, the one I was always compared to, the one who got the money. Then I suggest you tell Derek to sell some of his company's projected shares, or perhaps your sister can use her salary to cover the difference. My sister's salary was barely minimum wage, a fact I knew well. He finally reached out, slowly, tentatively, and picked up the rejection letter. His fingers trembled slightly as he folded it in half. You are a cold, heartless woman, Stephanie. I stood up. The movement was a signal. The meeting was over. The chair slid back silently on the rug. I smoothed the lapels of my tailored jacket. I learned to be cold from the best teachers, Dad. I walked around the desk, stopping beside him. I was taller than him when he was seated. I stood over him, the full weight of my success bearing down. I am not heartless. I am a fiduciary. I protect the bank's assets. And right now, I am protecting my own interests. I opened the door to the office, stepping into the neutral carpeted hallway. Jerry will see you out. Have a nice day, Bill. I didn't wait for a response. I turned on my heel and walked straight back to my desk. I didn't close the door. I wanted the sound of his departure. He muttered something. A curse, maybe a final plea, but it was lost in the vast, echoing hallway. I heard the soft click of the outer reception area door closing moments later. He was gone. I sat back down. I picked up the silver fountain pen again. My hands were perfectly steady. The trembling I expected didn't come, just the cold, calm focus of a job completed. I didn't look at the space where he had been sitting. I didn't allow myself to think about the house, the mortgage, the foreclosure that was now inevitable. I had done what I set out to do. I had administered the consequence. I opened the document I had been drafting, the formal rejection letter. I smiled thinly. I hadn't needed to write it. The bank system generated the necessary paperwork. I just needed the physical act of signing that first letter, the visceral scratch of the nib on the page, to confirm the transaction. I picked up the phone and dialed Jerry, my executive assistant. "Jerry, please order a fresh pot of black coffee and book me a conference call for 4 p.m. with Northrop Holdings. I want to discuss the terms of the second merger phase." I hung up the phone. I minimized the bank documents on my screen and pulled up the regional real estate listings. I typed in the address, 1304 Crestwood Drive. The house popped up immediately. A 3-bedroom ranch, faded siding, small yard. It was listed under notice of default. I clicked on the photo of the living room. The same ugly floral wallpaper my mother insisted on. The same worn carpet. I reached for my personal phone, the one unconnected to the bank network. I dialed the number for my private acquisitions lawyer, the one who handled my personal real estate investments. He answered on the first ring. "Stephanie, what can I do for you?" "David," I said, my voice crisp. "I need you to open a shell company. I want to bid on a residential property in the Northeast region. I want the bid to be aggressive. Cash, no contingency." "Certainly, Stephanie." "Address?" I read the address slowly, clearly. 1904 Crestwood Drive. "Understood." "And the target timeline?" I looked at the estimated foreclosure date on the screen. 6 weeks. "I want the deed in my name by Christmas. I want them out before the new year." I listened to him confirm the instructions. The legal language was clean, professional, devoid of emotion. "And David," I added, before he could hang up, "when the current occupants are officially notified of the foreclosure sale, I want them to receive an anonymous note, just a short one." "A note?" he asked, slightly confused. "What should it say?" I looked at the screen again, at the picture of the house they chose to protect instead of me, the daughter they dismissed as less successful. I gave him the text. My voice was low, firm. "Tell them, you should have invited me to Easter." I hung up the phone. I deleted the real estate search history. The coffee arrived, dark and steaming. I didn't thank Jerry. I didn't have to. I turned back to the complex merger documents. The next deal was waiting. Hundreds of millions of dollars. Real success. My father was gone. His house would be mine. The entire process was clean, professional, and sealed with my signature. The rage was gone. Only the cold, hard certainty remained. I took a deep, deliberate breath, smelling the expensive scent of leather and fresh ink. I picked up the pen. Time to work.